What I'd like to do is I'd like to talk to you a little bit about fear and the cost of fear and the age of fear from which we are now emerging. I would like you to feel comfortable with my doing that by letting you know that I know something about fear and anxiety. I'm a Jewish guy from New Jersey. I could worry before I could walk.
David Rothkopf knows what he's speaking about, not only because of his personal background, but because of his work. He is the CEO of the FP Group and editor of the Foreign Policy magazine. In this TED Talk, he discusses how fear drives U.S. politics, and the TED Talk is definitely worth watching. Not only does fear drive U.S. politics, but it drives politics generally. And it's very interesting to see the interplay of this fear, politics, and the media cycle. One of the best examples of this interplay is the recent Ebola outbreak from 2014 and 2015.
Today I want to take a few minutes to speak with you directly and clearly about Ebola, what we're doing about it, and what you need to know. This is a serious disease, but we can't give in to hysteria or fear, because that only makes it harder to get people the accurate information they need. We have to be guided by the science. We have to remember the basic facts.
Despite our president's admonition to pay attention to the facts and be guided by science, I don't think this happens often. And the way we can see it is through the political pundits in the media.
Many people frightened and angry that Ebola may spread throughout the USA. So what should the federal government do? Since it is Washington's obligation under the Constitution to provide for the common good. First of all flights from West Africa should immediately be discontinued to the USA, and Europe should do the same thing. Also, U.S. immigration should allow no one to enter this country holding a passport from any West African nation. As you may know, many people hold irrational fears, and that's contagious as well.
Now you have to ask, where did we go wrong? What did we do? What was the mistake that was made? And you might say, well, look, Washington is a dysfunctional place. There's political food fights. We've turned our discourse into a cage match. And that's true. That dysfunction that makes it impossible to get anything done in the richest and most powerful country in the world stops us in our tracks, and it keeps us from progress.
This raises the question, how do we get back on track and make progress once again?
Ebola is a deadly disease. You must understand it.
The West African man who spoke in this clip from Vice News was right. We must understand the Ebola virus. But how does that virus work? The virus is thought to have initially affected humans by what is called a spillover event. This occurs when a species carries the virus, but then, through contact with humanity, it jumps to our population, where it causes the disease. The Ebola virus is thought to live in bats, apes, and monkeys. When people came in contact with infected bodily fluids from these animals, often from killing them for bushmeat, the virus got its opportunity. It jumped to humans, attacking our immune system and wreaking havoc. This attack then moved on to the liver and adrenal glands, both in an effort to make people bleed profusely. This spreads the virus through this bodily fluid, which is the only way it can spread. It causes many internal organs to fail, which is the cause of death with the disease. This is very scary on an individual level, but what effect does it have in aggregate? This clip from Kurzgesagt explains it well.
Wow. Okay. Ebola is nasty. So it's time to panic, right? No, not even close. The severity of Ebola gets papers sold and YouTube videos shared, so everybody is talking about Ebola. But currently, the only way to get infected by Ebola is to come into contact with the bodily fluids of a person who shows symptoms or from an infected bat. So, just don't do that. Ebola has killed 5,000 people since June 2014. The common flu kills up to 500,000 people each year. Malaria kills up to 1 million each year, 3,000 people every single day, 10 children since this video started. So, even if Ebola is terrible and scary, don't let yourself be scared.
I don't believe any single individual or small group of people has an answer on how to best approach a disease like this. I don't know how we should have attacked Ebola, or SARS for that matter, or how we'll have to attack the Zika virus. I do believe that if we engage in a discussion, rather than just petty arguing, that we will come to a solution that will work well. This process is best described again by Rothkopf.
You also have processes that become reactive to news cycles. And so the parts of the US government that do foresight, that look forward, that do strategy, the parts in other governments that do this can't do it because they're reacting to the news cycle. And so we're not looking ahead. But what you had was a partnership and a dialogue, and the dialogue has broken down. It's broken down because in Washington, less government is considered more. It's broken down because there's, believe it or not, in Washington, a war on science, despite the fact that in all of human history, every time anyone has waged a war on science, science has won. And that brings me to the reason that I'm here. I live in Washington. Pity me. The dialogue isn't happening there. These big issues that will change the world, change national security, change economics, create hope, create threats, can only be resolved when you bring together groups of people who understand science and technology back together with governments. Both sides need each other. And until we recreate that connection, until we do what helped America grow and helped other countries grow, then we are going to grow ever more vulnerable. A moment of transformation akin to the beginning of the Renaissance, akin to the beginning of the major transformational eras that happened on Earth, and start coming up with, if not the right answers, then at least the right questions.